Hello, my name is John Barley from Rite Track New Zealand Limited. Today I present to you episode 2 of Are We on the Right Track to Understand the Security of Data? Last week we gave to you an episode that looks at the necessity to preserve the freedom of the business by having a secure system for protecting the company data. We also looked at the differences between company PCs and retail residential PCs. This week, we're going to be looking at 4 different topics, one of which really gained my attention. You see, in health and safety, there is a requirement for businesses to have a trained employee who knows the principles of first aid and they are normally trained by St. John's. But if our data was as important as the safety and security of people, why don't we actually have a trained employee as a first respondent in the event that the business computer systems are hacked by an outside third party? So that person would be able to know what to do to prevent further loss and also start the procedure of recovery. Also in this episode, we're going to be looking again at the differences between commercial PC backup systems and the residential retail PC backup systems, and there's quite a big difference. We're also going to be looking at how to identify fatigue within the employment of our people, specifically as they will be working remotely. We're also going to be looking at the issues of disaster recovery planning for our business. How do we actually put in the prevention of loss of data into our disaster recovery plan? How important is it? Well, I'll tell you now that if we don't make certain that we have good systems in place, then the ability for the business to recover quickly, should there be a ransom attack or a hacking of the system, then the ability for the business to recover is going to be so much harder and it's going to cost so much more money. So let's carry on, and I hope you enjoy episode 2. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye. Basically $500. But I know, and you probably also know, that there are many computer systems that are well beyond their 3 years and they do need to be upgraded. But when the computer fails for some reason, then you've also got this real nasty challenge in regards to the loss of your data and also loss of productivity and the disruption to the business and the installation of the new stuff with the new software. What are your thoughts on that little scenario that I just gave to you?
All right, now I'm starting to show my age now. So there was a time there when Moore's law took precedence. The Moore's law says that every 18 months computer processing power would double. So typically every 3 to 5 years your PC needed to be upgraded because it was obsolete, purely because of the fact it couldn't cope with the new software. So the software was coming out quick, the hardware was coming out quick, and they needed to be matched. Now that we've got to the current stage where we are, the speed of the PCs aren't increasing as fast, but the number of simultaneous tasks they can do is. So you can do more with the same speed PC. If you do more than one thing at a time. Not many of us do more than one thing at a time, I hasten to add.
Yeah.
Especially us Holdens. So a PC nowadays, and the way we store their data has changed as well. if you don't store your data on your PC, so there's nothing on your PC because your data is stored in the cloud, as they say, or on a separate device somewhere, and the programs that you run are running fine on your PC, the need to replace your computer hardware, your end user's computer hardware, is not so great as it used to be just a decade ago. The computers are lasting longer if you have a quality product, if you have a commercial grade PC as opposed to a consumer grade PCs. So yes, as long as they switch on, as long as they're still responsive, and as long as you don't store data on them, you've got nothing to lose. The need to replenish on these forklift upgrades isn't as great as it used to be.
Okay. Okay, so what's the outcome of that? Then you're saying that you can actually now have your computer longer than 3 to 5 years because all the data is offline,
Definitely, yes.
on the cloud?
So what's most important isn't the PC, but the data that's on it. It's got years of data, it's got years of experience in your data. If you lose your PC and your data's still safe and available, you can switch another PC on and download your data or have access to it. Google Docs was the driver behind this with the online storage of data and files and software. Dropbox followed on, and then Microsoft was more or less brought to the party kicking and screaming because they were losing market share.
Yep.
But to be honest with you, the Microsoft 365 accounts from a business perspective is a long way from where we were 5-10 years ago. A properly set up SharePoint system, which has been organized with security in mind and backup in mind, is an invaluable tool that allows you to work remotely, keep your data safe, and not be too concerned where it's being accessed from. As long as somebody's given it the proper technological thought to keep the data resilient and safe. And as the military used to say, if you don't need to access it, you shouldn't touch it. And that should be enforced. People should not have access to data they do not need access to.
Okay. Can I, one of the other things, let's go back to talking about people working remotely. One of the things I'm really interested in is patterns within business to actually define the level of productivity and the amount of pressure that is put on people. And when we had the old system where people would go to an office, they would be there for 6-7 hours, right? So there would be a level of productivity in those 6-7 hours. It was an expectation, but now people are working from home. So they might not work all day Friday, but they sure will work maybe Saturday and Sunday. Is there any way in a computer system whereby management of a company who are still sitting in an office in town somewhere can actually really start to understand the number of hours that people are working by watching the statistics, if there are any statistics, of the operation of computers all around New Zealand?
Yes, there is. So if you're working, doesn't matter where you're working from, the office or home or even the beach. Some people like to work in the beach because the nature of their job, that's where they get their creativity from, which is fine if they're working. Where you work from isn't the issue. From a management point of view, that takes you away from a time and materials and to results orientated. If the results are there for you that you would expect from somebody who works in an office 9 till 5, and you're getting those results, does it really matter when your staff is working? Now, myself, I love these systems, and I've always used these systems because I would rather do 8 hours of work spread over 12 hours a day So if that means that I've lost the incentive to answer this email right now and I can go make a cup of tea or take the dog for a walk and come back and look at it, and I'm better relaxed, I'm in the frame of mind to do a better job for the employer, as long as I meet my achievements. Now, the employer is able to monitor this. Every email has a timestamp on it. Every document you open and close has a timestamp on it. There's software that can analyze this data and give you graphs of productivity when a group of people or an individual account is being accessed and used. So in my case, my graph would be fairly level from the moment I woke up to the moment I go to bed. If the work comes in, I handle it. Whereas somebody else might just be interested in doing 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon and switching dial. But as long as the productivity is maintained, I don't see a problem with that. From a health perspective, the issue you get then is when people overwork, when people aren't prepared to stop working at 100% for 100% of the work of the waking hours. So you're going to get burnout, you're going to get stressed staff. So the question should be not are they working, can we see that they're working, but the question should be for the good staff, are they working too much, and do we have a responsibility for their mental health?
Which is going into the arena of health and safety within a business.
Yes. And if you want to start going down the health and safety route, you also need to start looking at posture. Is working from a poor sofa in the home environment with a laptop on your lap as good for your health as sitting in an office chair at a desk? Working from a dining room table will give you terrible backache and awful RSI in your wrists because the dining room table is too high. So some of these things need to be taken into consideration for prolonged periods of working from home.
Okay. So this way of measuring the amount of usage of a computer remotely, is that a separate software package that business owners can buy, or is it something that's already within the system?
So at the moment, you'll get metrics. Microsoft 365 produces metrics. It's a relatively new thing that they've started doing, but it shows your productivity levels. It shows the number of people that you've spoken to, communicated with, shows you the hours that you've been working on the 365 system, remembering that 365 is your email, your Word, your Excel. So 365 keeps those statistics and have started promoting them. So if you set up your Office 365 account, if you're using it properly, those reports are available. It's included in the price. You've then got Microsoft Teams as part of 365. That gives you secure video conferencing, gives you timestamps, it gives you shared documents, shared workplaces. If you're a large company, you can divide it up into smaller teams within the company. And just as we're having a video chat at the moment and we're able to share screens and show documents to each other, it's available, and we're using Zoom, but it's available in multiple software packages. I promote the Microsoft package because Microsoft, whether you like it or not, is the software of business. And even if you use Apple, you're still downloading and installing Microsoft Office for Word and Excel to use on your Apple device. So Microsoft is pretty much, at this stage anyway, is still the tool of choice for business.
One of the issues and challenges for business owners is, as you mentioned, was burnout and fatigue. And I know that when you suffer from burnout and fatigue and you work long hours, because you're not restricted to that 7 to 8 hours which you have in your office, in your corporate office, and if you don't have enough control on that, then the probability of burnout and fatigue can actually increase. However, burnout and fatigue will also promote the probability of a hacker coming in and causing disruption to the business. So it would be part of the management role to make certain that somehow or other they police the level of activity of an employee who could be deemed as a workaholic. But having that workaholic can actually expose that business dramatically to cybercrime.
You need a very large company with a very well-staffed HR department to manage something of this nature that you've just discussed. But fatigue and lack of attention is always the route to making simple mistakes. And if those simple mistakes include allowing a hacker onto your system, then yes, you will be more likely to have a higher risk, and that risk is likely to be of higher damage because you're not reacting quick enough to it.
It's all very scary, Robert, because they talk about the new normal, but we're going really into uncharted waters to understand the risks that businesses now have in regards to not only maintenance and protection of their data, but also in regard to the possibilities of cybercrime. And as per that screen that we mentioned at the very start, the traffic's going to increase, isn't it, really?
Oh yes, the what's known as script kiddies, young adults coming out of a fairly low level of education who has the knowledge to piece together a item of hacking software or an item of ransom software. It's a business out there that the real criminals who make this stuff are never culpable, because most people who are doing the actual work are naive, if you like. People who just buy the bits off the shelf and assemble them a bit like a jigsaw and send them off into the outside world to entrap unsuspecting end users. And it's getting easier to do, much easier to do.
I talk to business owners about disaster recovery plans and business plans, etc. If you were to give guidance to a business owner, specifically in the SME sector, what are the principal things that a business owner should be very conscious of when designing his disaster recovery plan to protect whatever data he's got so it's not lost?
Right. Don't look at it from a point of view of prevention. Look at it from a point of view of recovery. Accept that you are going to get hacked. One way or another, your data is going to become compromised. And if you work from how do I recover from that, it's much easier than working from the other end of how do I prevent it. Because you never know what the next sphere of attack is. You never know what the next technology is that's going to compromise your data. But the one thing that will never change is how you recover from that disruption. So if you go into it with a mindset of, I am going to be targeted, I am going to be compromised, how safe can I make my data while still making it accessible by the staff that need to use it, and recover from any interruptions? And going back to those 3 questions I asked at the beginning, that's a fine point. That's where you need to start from. Have I got my backups? Do I have access to them? And do they work? And yeah, that's the area you need to come from. I am going to get attacked. How do I recover from it when I do?
Yeah. It's so in your new role as general manager, are people able to contact you and talk to you about the security of their data systems and how they can overcome the particular issues? And if they are, how do they contact you? Where do they get hold of you?
I'm only too welcome to assist people. My entire career here in New Zealand has been built on support without financial gain sometimes. Now, as General Manager of Data Center 220, I have a lot of clients in my data center who can assist end users. And I'm only too happy to listen to their concerns and point them in the direction of the correct person who can help. Now, as I said before, that's not the general manager of a data center or the staff of a data center. We're here to make sure our systems are maintained for the IT companies who do support end users. And this is where I'm happy to assist. We have in our data center 81 internet service providers. We have in our data center a whole host of data backup services. And I'm only too happy to listen to an end user's requirements and then advise them who can best assist them with their needs. But yes, there's an awful lot of IT support companies out there. From the one that I used to work with to NSP to the list just goes on. I could start listing them, but we'd be here all day.
That's a very political, non-biased response, which is really, really cool. So, well done. Robert, as per normal, you know, the amount of information that you've given has been absolutely superb. I think it's really given clarity to those people that will listen, and really the risk starts at the person who is in control of that keyboard sitting in front of the screen. And it doesn't matter whether you have insurance for cybercrime or not. That insurance is purely and simply there to provide indemnity in the event that your own systems fail. But primarily, you've got to make certain your systems do fail. No, oh, sorry, make certain your systems don't fail.
Or go, as I say, assume that they will and make sure that you can recover. But insurance is there to protect you financially for a short period of time. It's not there to recover your data and ensure that you can continue in a productive manner every time. Sometimes these things are irreversible if you don't have suitable backups, if you don't have backups you can recover from. And one point crossed my mind then. How many people are trained in first aid? How often do you send somebody in the office in a first aid training course, just in case somebody in the office injures themselves? Now, if you're prepared to do it for the health of your people, how many people in the office is trained to assist with the IT? The simple stuff. Is this a good website? Is this a good person? Is this how I should be paying this money? So yeah, you really should have the IT person in the company, the go-to person who can do first aid, who can do triage for your computer.
Very good point. It's a very, very good point. Mind you, a lot of people are doing their first aid course because they're told to do their first aid course because it's a requirement of health and safety. I don't think that applies to the IT world.
Which brings us back to the previous question of who's responsible. And if a senior manager decides that there should be a first aid responder for your IT systems, he can tell them as well. Courses are inexpensive. And initial triage does not have to be expensive.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's absolutely cool. Robert, thank you very, very much. And no doubt we will talk again soon on some other subject or talk to one another for a cup of coffee. But thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Hopefully I've not wasted yours or anyone else's time. And just remember, if you do need a data center, we are the New Zealand's most interconnected data center. So we're the first choice. So
that's a very good point. People can go to their IT suppliers and they can say, I want to use data center 220.
Yes, they can. They can say, I'd like you to manage my equipment and I'd like my equipment located in data center 220. That would be ideal.
Some other little questions just popped up into my head. Who actually owns those boxes behind you?
So that's our investment. So those cages are 42U high, which means they can take 42 1U computers or servers. And then we provide power to them. So there's two power feeds, an A and a B feed. The power feeds are fed by two separate independent battery feeds, and the batteries are fed by the mains. And if the mains fails, there's two gensets to power them. So that's what's known as 2N. Some of our systems at the moment are N or N+1, but we're on a huge thrust to make the data 2N throughout. That's a lot of work which we are currently embarking upon. And it's something impressive to see when you see a 500 kilowatt genset being lifted from Queen Street and put through the second story of a 12-story building. So yeah, next time we do it, I'll let you know, and you can come watch the disruption we cause to the traffic.
So you actually own those cages, you own the computer system, the backup systems within there. And
yeah, we own the computer cages, and we own the IT, the power and the cooling facilities to keep our clients' IT equipment going in the event of a outage, be that power or something else. So we have enough diesel on site to keep the generators going for 31 hours. Then we have 3 separate contracts with fuel providers who can top the tanks up once every 24 hours. So everything's built in with a redundancy. And even in the event of the city having no power for extended periods of time, which has happened in the past, this data center would not suffer from that. And we can't, because some of the people who host equipment in our data center, for example, all of the digital communications for the emergency services come out of our data center via one of their clients. The controllers for some of the power grid are hosted in our data center. And if we go dark, they can no longer control the power grid. We have some really key equipment in the data center that's responsible for a lot of the infrastructure, including the internet, throughout the country.
So somebody's done a pretty good, thorough risk management role to make certain that it's all going to be fail-safe.
Yes, and we test it monthly. Just as I suggested people should test their backups monthly, we test our power generation on a regular basis as well. And what that means is that once we've notified our clients we're doing a test, one morning we go in and we pull the breakers on the mains. And we make sure that nobody's equipment fails. And trust me, that's a nail-biting moment when you pull the breaker on your mains power feed and you've got such a high level of responsibility on behalf of your clients and the customers that they support, making sure that the generators come in, that the batteries are powered, the batteries don't run out of power before the generators kick in, that the cooling comes back in. That can be a nail-biting 20 minutes.
Which raises another interesting question, and you've mentioned it a few times. Your clients are the IT companies, and it's your clients who actually have the hardware in those cages. They own the hardware. So you're just a facility for the operation of that hardware for safety purposes.
Yes, for security, resilience, and cost.
Okay, here's a question for you. You're on the 12th floor of 122 Queen Street in a reasonably old building built around 1960s. What happens in the event of an earthquake?
Okay, so our building is a very robust building. According to I think it's the EQC, is it? We're 118%. Okay. So anybody who's 80% is A+. So we're at the very top end of the scale for earthquake resilience. And we have sensors on everything. The other question, not only earthquake, but we're fairly close to the waterfront, and the data centers in a. So water, for example, flooding through either leaks in the building or heaven forbid, a huge wave that might come through. So we have sensors everywhere, and our fire suppression is something to behold. So yeah, all of these things that we maintain to a very high standard, and there's so many checks and tests that go on to ensure that we don't let our clients down.
Okay, volcanic eruption. And Auckland shut down, and we've got a lava flow coming down Queen Street.
We might have slightly bigger problems to worry about than will my internet work in the morning. But having said that, we are just one pop of many. So the ISPs, for example, I mentioned some of them before, which are advertised on their website, Voyager, Spark. They won't rely on one data center. They will have a number of data centers up and down the country. You have to remember that the internet was designed for conflict. It was designed for disruption, and it was designed to carry on going even in the most severe of circumstances. So the internet will be safe. The people who host in our data center will have redundant paths. So they will have backups from data. They'll have data center replication. So what they have in our data center, they'll have in another data center. And that's why we are so well renowned. We have a worldwide reputation because in New Zealand, as I said before, we're the most interconnected data center, but it's where we connect to that's important, that made us popular in the first place. So Mayoral Drive, Sky Tower, out to the Southern Cross cable. We have all the major interconnects, all the major equipment that's required by our customers.
Okay, so the information, is that sent down through, what do you call it, fiber?
Fiber, yes. So we're lit with 3 fibers, which is unusual for a data center. So we have 3 separate suppliers, and we have 3 separate feeds into the building, and each of those feeds have redundant paths. So all the big fiber providers are here. So you've got Chorus, you've got Vector, you've got Cordia, you've got Vital, which used to be called CityLink. All of these companies own their own fiber up and down the country, and they all terminate in data center 220. Well, that's wrong, they don't terminate here, they have a node here.
Wow, that's quite a valuable asset for the business community here in New Zealand, because it sounds to me as though it's the real hub of everything, that of essential services that basically keeps New Zealand humming.
Yes. People get upset if they can't watch Netflix in the evening. And this is valid because during the COVID situation, when everybody was home, working from home, the internet usage went up. So Chorus has got capacity for 3 terabits of data per second. That's a vast number. And we come close to maxing it out. We exceeded 3 terabytes, terabits
Yeah.
per second. And during lockdown, because we're an essential service, so I was here on site for the entire period. We had a limited staff, myself and my chief engineer were here, facilities manager was here. And we had people coming in and out of the data center where they had to increase the capacity for their networks to take account of the added demand through the internet. So yes, it was an eye-opener just to see how much traffic actually comes through this one site.
And that raises a whole number of other issues, doesn't it? Because
yeah,
it basically...
that one I can help you with, but that's probably the subject for another meeting.
Yeah, no, but thank you ever so much, and we'll catch up soon.
You're welcome, John. Have a good evening.
Same to you. Bye.